Well, we now want to talk about a new overview of research on global warming has found climate change is happening faster and on a broader scale than scientists projected in 2007. The report, which was released Thursday by the United Nations Environment Program, aims to update predictions issued by the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 2 years ago. It concludes evidence of human-generated global warming in the last half-century is, quote, unequivocal, and would change the planet dramatically by the end of the century unless greenhouse gas emissions drop sharply by 2050. The new findings come in a week where the issue of global warming is at the fore. On Tuesday, world leaders gathered in New York for a one-day UN summit on climate change, and the issue will also be on the agenda today at the G20 summit in Pittsburgh. The efforts all lead up to the major climate summit in Copenhagen in December to update the 1997 Kyoto Protocol. Among those who spoke at the United Nations this week was the Nobel Peace Prize-winning Kenyan environmentalist Wangari Maathai. She was chosen to speak on behalf of international civil society. In her address, she called global warming the challenge of all time.
Unlike delegations and negotiators, Your Excellencies have the power to turn this around in Copenhagen. There is no time to lose. This is the challenge of our time. Addressing it will take collective political will. No part of the world is immune. We are all in this together, irrespective of our level of contribution to the problem. Business as usual for any one country would be a tragedy.
Well, for more on climate change, Wangari Maathai joins us today in our Firehouse studio. She's a Kenyan environmentalist, lawmaker, and civil society activist. In 1977, she spearheaded the struggle against state-backed deforestation in Kenya and founded the Green Belt movement, which has planted some 45 million trees in the country. She's also been an outspoken advocate for women's rights and democratic development, and in 2002, she was elected to the Kenyan parliament. For her work, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2004. She's the author of several books. Her latest is The Challenge for Africa. I want to welcome you to Democracy Now!
Thank you very much.
What was your reception like at the United Nations, and how do you feel your message was received?
Well, as you said, I was greatly honored to speak on behalf of the people, of the civil society, and the reception was very good. In a way, the people we are trying to say, well, it's the leaders who have the responsibility to agree. And based on the science that we have now been given, the leaders must make a commitment for an agreement that is going to replace the Kyoto Protocol and that is going to make sure that we don't continue emitting more gases than we can take.
And you must have obviously been watching what is happening in the United States with the Congress here and the efforts to finally tackle climate change here by the Congress. The House of Representatives has passed a bill, but the Senate still must pass a bill. What do you see the Obama administration and the United States Congress, their role on the world stage on this issue?
Well, I think the world is very encouraged. We are definitely very happy that the United States of America is on board this time. I know that in Kyoto, they did not support and they never signed the Kyoto Protocol. And as a result, we didn't go very far. So we are very encouraged. We are hoping that the American people will call their senators and convince them that there is no time to waste and that it is very important for the United States to provide the leadership. Because besides the fact that the United States of America is the greatest contributor to the greenhouse gases per capita, it is the world leader. And if she is committed, if she comes forward, then the rest of the world is going to come forward. And we saw that in the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday, and it continues. The leaders who are talking are really committed. And I was happy to see how China responded, how Japan responded. The President Obama was very committed, but there were no specific data. But I know that it's not coming until we approach Copenhagen.
Well, I want to get your response to some of what President Obama had to say about climate change in his address to the UN on Tuesday.
It is true that for too many years, mankind has been slow to respond or even recognize the magnitude of the climate threat. It is true of my own country as well. We recognize that. But this is a new day. It is a new era. And I'm proud to say that the United States has done more to promote clean energy and reduce carbon pollution in the last 8 months than at any other time in our history.
That was President Obama. Your sense is that last statement that he made, is that accurate? In the last 8 months, the United States has done more than its whole history?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know. I do not have the data. He must know. But what was significant is for him to admit that indeed the United States now is not going to use science as an excuse, and it's not going to say that perhaps it is not human-induced greenhouse gases that are causing the trouble. And that has been very significant because that was the major excuse in the past. And we hope that this will influence the senators to agree that indeed we can no longer shovel this issue aside. And I would like to say this. If the more than 4,000 scientists who have been working on this issue are wrong, this is one issue that we cannot experiment with. We cannot wait until the seas rise, the rivers dry up, and our people are dying and migrating and running away. We cannot wait to see more fires such as we are seeing in California, erratic fires. We cannot wait to see the kind of floods that we see in Bangladesh, that we see in West Africa. We are already seeing islands that are literally drowning. So let us not experiment with our lives and that of our children.
And in the upcoming gathering in Copenhagen, obviously, will be crucial to any efforts at slowing down climate change or reversing it. What do you feel are the main issues that that not only the rest of the developing world, but the countries of the advanced West will have to deal with? Obviously, there's the issue of whether there will be actual agreed-on goals for reductions in emissions. But what are the other issues that you think are critical?
Well, one of the issues that we have been following up is the issue of forests. Scientists tell us that 20% of the greenhouse gases are coming from deforestation and forest degradation. And we think that, therefore, forests should be made part of the solution. They were set aside in Kyoto, and the government said they will talk about it later. They never did, partly because the United States was not on board. So we hope that the forests will be on board. I'm quite sure that we will come to an agreement of some sort. The measure of commitment will be how much they will be willing to cap, to reduce the emissions, and the measures they will take to ensure that developing countries and upcoming economies are willing also to play their part. And I'm hoping that especially in countries like in African countries, that our leaders will really seriously commit. We have a huge forest in Africa, the Congo forest, and I happen to be the goodwill ambassador for that forest, to really encourage African governments not to think that it should only be protected by the countries that are within the Congo. This is an issue that is important for the entire region, but also for the whole world, because the forest in Amazonia, the Amazonian forest, the Congo, and the forest in Southeast Asia are extremely important for global climate.
You've even made the argument that preserving and expanding those forests creates jobs for the developing world. How so?
Precisely. You know, the Greenbelt movement has championed the tree planting, and I can say with confidence that you can actually create millions of jobs of young people planting trees, protecting forests, and rehabilitating degraded forests.